It's a question almost every man has wondered at some point, but few ever ask out loud, how often should I actually be having sex? Not in a way that's driven by ego or comparison, but out of genuine curiosity. What's healthy, what's normal, and what's ideal for both body and mind. In a world flooded with conflicting advice, where masculinity is often measured in unrealistic standards and social media highlight reels, it's easy to get lost in the noise. But this isn't about performance metrics. It is about understanding what sex really means for your overall health and how frequency fits into the bigger picture. Let's start with this. There's no universal magic number, no one-size-fits-all formula that determines your worth or well-being based on how often you have sex. What matters far more is why you're having it, how it makes you feel, and whether it's part of a life that feels balanced, connected, and fulfilled. That said, science does offer us some insights, and they're surprisingly practical, even comforting. Research suggests that having sex about once a week is associated with the highest levels of happiness and relationship satisfaction. Not 5 times a week, not once a month, just once. Enough to maintain physical intimacy, emotional connection, and hormonal benefits without turning it into a chore or a competition. But that number isn't a benchmark, it's an average. Some couples thrive on more frequent connection, others on less. What's critical is that it feels natural, not forced, because sex, at its healthiest, isn't just about physical release. It's a reflection of how you relate to yourself and your partner. Are you present? Are you attuned? Are you making space for joy, spontaneity, and real intimacy? Or are you treating it like another checkbox in your weekly routine? Physiologically, sex activates systems in your body that have ripple effects far beyond the bedroom. It boosts testosterone, strengthens your immune response, lowers blood pressure, improves sleep, and releases a cocktail of feel-good chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin. These aren't just short-term rewards. They influence your long-term mental health, emotional resilience, and even cognitive sharpness. When you're sexually active in a healthy, consistent way, your entire system operates more smoothly. You move through the world with more confidence, less anxiety, and a deeper sense of vitality. But here's where it gets interesting. Having sex too frequently, especially out of obligation or addiction, can actually have the opposite effect. When it becomes mechanical, driven by stress, escapism, or performance anxiety, you begin to deplete the very resources that sex is supposed to replenish. Your energy drops. Your desire becomes disconnected from authentic emotion, and your partner can feel it, even if neither of you says a word. That's why quality matters more than quantity. A few meaningful, connected moments of intimacy can be far more beneficial than a flurry of rushed, unfulfilling encounters. Let's also talk about age. It is no secret that sexual frequency tends to decline as men get older, but that doesn't mean it has to disappear or even diminish significantly. What often changes isn't capacity, but context. Energy shifts, stress accumulates, responsibilities pile up. And somewhere along the way, desire gets pushed to the bottom of the priority list, but that doesn't mean it's gone. It means it needs to be nurtured differently. Not through pressure or guilt, but through reconnection, both physically and emotionally. Sometimes the key to better sex isn't more sex, but better communication, more honesty, more touch outside of the bedroom, more understanding of what turns you on emotionally, not just physically, because sexual desire is often tied to how safe, seen, and valued you feel. And no number of times per week will fix that if those deeper needs aren't being met. In relationships, the conversation around sex is rarely just about sex. It's about time, energy, emotional investment, trust, self-esteem, and how we manage the complexity of modern life. That's why many couples fall into mismatched cycles, where one partner craves more connection, while the other feels overwhelmed, tired, or emotionally distant. And when that gap widens without being acknowledged, frustration builds. One starts to wonder, what's wrong with me? While the other quietly questions, why do I feel so disconnected? In this space, comparison becomes dangerous. You hear friends talk about how often they're intimate. You see headlines boasting unrealistic numbers, and suddenly your once healthy rhythm starts to feel inadequate. But here is the truth most people want to say out loud: Sex is not a race. It's not a scoreboard. It's not about keeping up with anyone else. It's about tuning into your rhythm, your relationship, and your body. That's why emotional health plays such a critical role. Stress, anxiety, burnout, and unresolved personal issues can all suppress your sex drive without you even realizing it. When your nervous system is constantly on high alert, your body isn't thinking about pleasure. It's thinking about survival. Cortisol levels spike, testosterone takes a hit, and before long your desire fades. Not because you're broken, but because your body is simply trying to protect you from overload. The solution? Slow down, not necessarily in frequency, but in pace, in awareness. Start noticing the moments in your day where touch, play, or connection could exist, but don't. Notice how often you're distracted, rushing, multitasking, or numbing yourself with screens. Desire doesn't thrive in that environment. It grows in stillness, in curiosity, in the spaces between doing and simply being. And let's not ignore the solo part of the equation, because self-connection matters too. Understanding your own body, your own rhythms, your own preferences and boundaries is key to showing up fully with someone else. Masturbation, when done mindfully and in moderation, isn't just normal, it's healthy. It helps regulate hormones, release stress, and build awareness of what feels good. The danger only comes when it becomes compulsive or isolating, a substitute for real intimacy rather than a supplement to it. Technology also complicates this picture. With endless access to adult content and unrealistic portrayals of what sex should look like, many men develop skewed expectations that don't reflect real life. This can lead to performance pressure, shame, and even physical symptoms like delayed arousal or difficulty maintaining connection. That is why it's important to detox mentally as well as physically, clearing space for real human connection to take center stage again. What's often overlooked is how much sex is tied to identity. For many men, it's linked with power, worth, or control. But the most fulfilling sex doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender, from trust, from presence. And ironically, that presence often starts outside the bedroom, in how you show up for your partner when nothing's expected, in how you manage your health, your rest, your emotional availability. Because your sex life is not separate from the rest of your life. It is a reflection of it. If you're wondering how to find your ideal rhythm, the answer lies in honest reflection, not statistics. Ask yourself, do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel connected to my partner? Do I feel present in my body? If the answer is yes, chances are your frequency is fine. If not, it is not about forcing more sex into your schedule. It is about getting curious about what's blocking that desire. Are you exhausted? Emotionally disconnected? Carrying stress that never quite leaves you even when you lie down at night? One of the most overlooked factors is lifestyle. Poor sleep, lack of movement, excessive alcohol, a diet that's high in processed foods, all of these slowly chip away at your natural vitality. Testosterone, the key hormone driving male libido, thrives when your body is treated with care. That means lifting weights, sleeping well, eating clean, reducing sugar, and staying mentally engaged. You can't separate your sex life from your overall health, and the more you support your body, the more your body will support your desire. Another vital piece is emotional safety, especially in long-term relationships, where the spark may not come from novelty but from depth, from knowing your partner sees you, understands you, and still chooses you. The more emotionally attuned you are to each other, the more room there is for spontaneous, unforced connection. Sometimes what reignites a man's sex drive isn't a new technique. It is a simple conversation where he feels heard, supported, and unjudged. So, how many times a week should you have sex? As often as it nurtures your body, strengthens your bond, and brings joy instead of pressure. For some, that's once a week. For others, it's 3 times. And for a few, it might be less frequent, but more intentional. The key is not to chase a number, but to protect the quality of your connection. It's easy to focus on the physical side of sex, the hormones, the pleasure, the mechanics. But sex, at its best, is a language, one that speaks beyond words. It says, "I'm here. I see you. I want to share something real with you." It's about connection in a world that constantly pulls us apart. And when it's treated with that kind of reverence, frequency stops being a question, because what you're recreating is not just a physical act, but a ritual of intimacy that sustains you, heals you, and makes life feel more alive. So instead of asking, "Am I having enough sex?" maybe ask, "Am I having the kind of sex that brings me to life?" That's the real measure of a healthy sex life. Not numbers, not comparisons, just truth, connection, and the courage to live fully in your body, in your relationship, and in your desire.